Welcome to Neville Manifestation, where you learn to transform your inner world and reshape your reality. If you're ready to unlock your true power and consciously create the life you desire, make sure you join our growing membership and become part of a community committed to real change from within. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin, I want you to do something a little different. Don't look at the details around you, not the faces, not the room itself. Instead, notice something you cannot see. Notice the invisible state each person has walked in with tonight. Some of you came in holding hope, a soft and fragile kind that's been shaken before. Some of you brought skepticism, the guarded kind that protects itself from disappointment. Others are leaning forward, ready and eager, while a few of you are holding back, waiting to be convinced before you open up. And then there are those of you in a completely different state altogether. Something we'll come back to. Every one of these states is already shaping what you are about to receive. Not because I will say different words to different people. The words will be exactly the same. But what you hear will depend entirely on the state you are in when you hear them. The same sentence can feel life-changing to one person and meaningless to another, simply because of the state through which it is received. I didn't choose tonight's topic by accident. I chose it because it holds the master key. Not just a key, but the key. The one that, once you truly understand it and apply it, changes how you experience every part of your life. Tonight, we're talking about states of consciousness. And when you really understand this, you will never see your life or anyone else's life the same way again. Let me give you something simple but powerful. Something I want you to remember deeply. You are always in a state. You cannot not be in a state. And the moment you become aware of the state you are in, you gain the ability to leave it. That's the entire teaching in its simplest form. Everything else I say tonight is just an expansion of that. A woman came to me recently, and her story might sound familiar to many of you. She said she had been trying to manifest a loving relationship for years. She had visualized endlessly, repeated affirmations until they felt empty, and prayed with everything she had, yet nothing changed. She asked me, "What am I doing wrong?" I told her, "You're not doing anything wrong. You're just living in the wrong state." She was living in the state of wanting love, the state of reaching for something that always felt just out of reach. It looked like hope, but underneath it was lack. And life, which simply reflects who you are being, was giving her more of that same experience. More longing, more waiting, more not having. She wasn't failing to manifest, she was manifesting perfectly. She was experiencing exactly what her state was producing. Right now, as you sit here, you are in a specific state of consciousness. This is not just a passing mood, it's much deeper than that. It's the combination of your thoughts, your expectations, your beliefs, your assumptions, and even the things you've quietly stopped believing are possible. This inner state is what you're projecting into life, and life responds to it. It's not your past, your circumstances, your education, or your environment that determines your experience. It is your state. Have you ever walked into a room and felt tension before anyone spoke? Or met someone and instantly felt drawn to them or uncomfortable without knowing why? That's not random. That's awareness recognizing awareness, state recognizing state. We are far more sensitive to each other's inner world than we realize. And life itself is far more responsive to it than we've been taught. Most people go through life without ever realizing they are constantly shifting between states, like actors changing roles without knowing they're in a play. They move from confidence to worry, from hope to doubt, from peace to frustration. And they believe these feelings are caused by what's happening outside them. But the truth is the opposite. Your state comes first and life follows. Understanding this is one of the most practical things you can ever learn. Not practical like a skill, but practical like understanding gravity. It explains how your life actually works. I remember a man who came to one of my talks years ago. He was a painter, very talented, but struggling deeply. His apartment was filled with paintings no one was buying. He could barely get by. But one day, something shifted in him. He didn't decide to work harder or chase opportunities. He made a different kind of decision. He chose to change his state. He stopped seeing himself as a struggling artist and started living as a successful one. Not pretending, but internally becoming that person. Every morning he asked himself, how does a successful artist feel? And then he lived from that feeling. He carried himself differently. He spoke about his work with quiet confidence. He treated his space and his craft with respect. Within months, everything changed. Opportunities appeared, his work was discovered, his reality had no choice but to reflect the state he consistently lived in. His circumstances didn't change his state. His state changed his circumstances. Think about your own life. You had days where everything seemed to flow. People were kind, things worked out, opportunities appeared easily. And you had other days where everything felt difficult. Nothing went right, and everything seemed against you. What changed? Not the world. You did. You moved from one state to another, and life responded accordingly. This isn't coincidence, it's law. The same truth is hidden in the simple phrase, I am. Whatever you say after I am, you begin to experience. You're not just describing yourself, you are defining your state. I am tired, I am unlucky, I am overlooked. Life reflects it back. But the same is true in the opposite direction. I am supported, I am successful, I am someone who experiences good things. And over time, life begins to match that too. The creative power is always working through you. The only question is whether you are directing it consciously or letting old patterns run automatically. A state is not just a feeling, it's a complete inner setup. Your thoughts, emotions, expectations, and beliefs all aligned in one direction. When you are truly in a state, everything about you reflects it. Your thoughts match it, your posture reflects it, your expectations support it. When you are in the state of being loved, you don't question it. You don't try to convince yourself, it simply feels normal. Think of it like tuning a radio. Many signals exist at once, but you only hear the one you are tuned into. In the same way, life contains endless possibilities, but you only experience the one that matches your state. If you are tuned into lack, you will see lack everywhere. If you are tuned into abundance, you will begin to notice opportunities, support, and flow. Nothing outside has changed, only your state has. And that is where your power is. When you're tuned into the state of lack, everything you notice reflects that. It feels like there's never enough time, never enough love, never enough recognition. No matter what happens, it all seems to confirm the same story. It's like every experience is just another version of the same message. Something is missing. But when you shift into the state of abundance, your perception changes completely. You begin to notice opportunities, resources, people and ideas that were always there but invisible to you before. Life starts asking a different question. What is available? What is working? What is possible? And here is what should give you real hope. Both of these realities exist right now at the same time. Abundance is here. Love is here. Opportunities, health, connection, they are all present in this moment, existing like signals waiting to be received. The only difference is what you are tuned into, and you are the one holding that dial. This is where most people misunderstand everything. They believe their feelings come from their circumstances. They think, I feel worried because my business is failing, or I feel lonely because I am alone, or I'll feel confident once I achieve something. They are always saying, I'll be happy when. But this is the illusion that keeps people stuck for years. The truth is the exact opposite. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner state. Your business reflects the state you've been living in. Your relationships reflect the state you carry within. What looks like a solid problem is actually just a delayed effect of a state you've been consistently occupying. I once spoke to a woman who deeply wanted to find a partner. She had been dating for years, but every relationship ended the same way. She asked me, why does love never stay? So I asked her how she prepared for a date. She told me she would spend hours trying to look perfect. While getting ready, her mind was full of questions. Will he like me? What if I say the wrong thing? I hope this works. Before she even stepped out the door, she was already in a state of needing approval, trying to be enough, hoping to be chosen. That state was already shaping the outcome. The men she met could feel it, not logically but emotionally, the same way you can feel tension when you walk into a room. And they responded to that energy in the only way life can respond, by reflecting it back. So I told her something simple. Before your next date, sit quietly. Don't think about the person. Instead, step into the feeling of already being loved. Imagine yourself as someone who is already deeply valued, already secure in a relationship. Not wishing for it, but living as if it's already real. Feel what it's like to be appreciated, to be chosen, to be at ease. Feel how natural it is. Then go to the date from that state. She did exactly that. And the version of her that showed up that night was completely different. She was calm, open, and curious. She wasn't trying to impress. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She already felt complete within herself. The man across from her experienced a completely different person because she had become a different person on the inside. Within 6 months, they were engaged. This shift, this reversal of cause and effect is one of the hardest things for people to accept. It goes against everything we've been taught. We've been conditioned to believe that the world outside comes first and we simply react to it. We've been told to be realistic, to let what we see determine what we believe, to adjust ourselves to circumstances. But the truth is, consciousness is the real foundation. What you see outside is just the visible expression of what's happening inside. The outer world is not the source, it is the result. Change your inner assumptions truly and deeply, not just with surface level positive thinking, and your outer world has no choice but to change. This is not philosophy, it is law. Just like gravity doesn't ask for your opinion before it acts, this law doesn't question whether you deserve something or whether it makes sense. It simply reflects the state you live in most consistently. And this should feel freeing, because it means you don't have to wait for life to change before you feel better. You don't have to depend on other people or perfect conditions. The doorway to a different life is not somewhere out there. It's within you. Right now, in this moment, you can choose your state. You can choose to step into gratitude, into love, into abundance, into peace. Not because your life proves it yet, but because you are the one creating the experience. But here's where many people struggle, so listen carefully. Choosing a state does not mean forcing emotions. A lot of people try to use willpower. They try to push themselves to feel confident when they are scared. They repeat positive words while internally feeling the opposite. They try to cover anxiety with fake optimism, and it doesn't work. Because they're only working on the surface. It's like trying to fix your reflection in the mirror instead of changing what's standing in front of it. The mirror can only reflect what's there. Your outer world works the same way. It reflects your inner state, not your words, not your forced emotions, but your deeper assumptions. Real change happens at the level of what you quietly accept as true. When you are truly in the state of wealth, you don't sit there repeating, "I am rich," while feeling lack inside. You don't think about wealth as something you need to get. You think from it. It becomes your normal. It becomes your foundation. It becomes the place you stand from, not something you're reaching toward. And that is the difference between trying to change your life and actually changing it. You start to expect things to work out for you. Your decisions come from a place of inner stability instead of fear or doubt. Money is no longer something you constantly worry about or try to control. It becomes a quiet, settled part of your life. Let me explain this with a real example. I once knew someone who wanted to be a writer. He wasn't published yet, just someone hoping it would happen someday. Over time, he had collected plenty of rejection letters. And when he spoke about his work, even if his words sounded confident, there was always an underlying doubt. You could feel that he wasn't fully convinced his work mattered. He was living in the identity of someone who hasn't made it yet, and his reality kept reflecting that back to him. Then something changed. He didn't decide to work harder or force himself to improve. Instead, he made a different kind of decision. He chose to fully step into the mindset of a successful writer. He asked himself a simple question. How does a writer feel when they truly know their work has value? Not how they pretend to feel, but how they actually experience their craft on the inside. From that point on, he began showing up differently. He sat at his desk with that quiet certainty. He spoke about his work without hesitation or apology. He even changed his workspace to reflect this new identity. Most importantly, he stopped acting like someone trying to get there and started living as someone who was already there. Someone whose work naturally carried weight. Within a year, things began to shift. Publishers who had ignored him before suddenly became interested. Opportunities appeared that he hadn't even imagined before. His external world began to match his internal state. Before, his thinking had been limited by doubt. Now his imagination had room to expand. Here's something many people don't fully realize. The state you're in reinforces itself. When you're truly in a certain state, your thoughts naturally support it. The way you speak strengthens it. Your actions confirm it. Even what you notice around you starts to align with it. It's not that you're forcing yourself to see certain things. It's that your mind filters reality differently depending on your state. You begin to notice evidence that matches what you already believe. That's why it's so important to catch yourself when you're in a state you don't want. The longer you stay there, the more it feels natural and the more proof you gather to support it. It starts to feel inevitable. But here's the key. The moment you notice your state, you create space between you and it. You are no longer completely absorbed in it. You become the observer of it. And once you can observe something, you can change it. Think of yourself as someone exploring your own mind. Not in a tense or obsessive way, but with genuine curiosity. Every now and then, pause and ask yourself, what state am I in right now? Am I feeling abundant or lacking? Calm or stressed? Am I expecting things to go well, or am I bracing for disappointment? Just asking this question without judging yourself can begin to shift everything. Most people don't even realize they're in a state. They think it's just reality. They say, I'm not worried, I'm just being realistic. But the moment you recognize, I'm in a state of worry, instead of, this is just how things are, something changes. You step back. You separate yourself from the feeling. You remember that you are not the state, you are the awareness experiencing it. That's the difference between living unconsciously and consciously. When someone is unconscious, they don't see their emotions as temporary, they see them as truth. Their fear feels like reality. Their frustration feels justified and permanent. There's no distance, no perspective. But a conscious person understands that states are temporary. They're like rooms you walk into, not identities you're stuck with. You can leave any room at any time. Once you recognize the state you're in, how do you shift it? The answer is simpler than most people think. You don't fight it. In fact, trying to resist it only gives it more power. Whatever you focus on, you feed. And attention isn't passive, it creates. Instead of resisting, you gently redirect yourself. Think of it like moving from one room to another. If you're in a state of worry and you want to feel confident, you don't need to destroy the worry. That room will always exist. You simply choose to walk into a different one. You do that by asking yourself, how would I think, feel and act if I were already in the state I want? If you want love, imagine how someone who feels deeply loved moves through life. What do they assume about themselves? How do they interpret other people's behavior? How do they see their own worth? Then begin to think from that place, not as an act, but as a shift in perspective. If you want better health, stop focusing on what's wrong. Instead, step into the mindset of someone for whom health is normal and natural. If you want financial ease, don't stay focused on lack. Begin to experience what it feels like when abundance is just your everyday reality. Not something surprising, but something expected. At first, this might feel unnatural. Your mind might push back and say, this isn't real, you're just pretending. That reaction is normal. But notice this, every state feels completely natural when you're inside it, and completely unfamiliar when you're not. Confidence feels obvious when you have it, doubt feels obvious when you're in it. Each state justifies itself. So when you step into a new state, you're not pretending, you're practicing. You're building familiarity with a different way of being. And with repetition, it becomes natural. There's something else worth understanding. States don't just affect you, they affect others too. When you're truly calm or genuinely happy, not forcing it, but actually feeling it, people around you notice. Not because of what you say, but because of what you radiate. Have you ever been in a bad mood, then spent time with someone who was genuinely at peace, and without trying, you started to feel lighter? That's because their state influenced yours. This is why changing yourself changes your world. It's not a moral idea, it's just how things work. When your state shifts, you become different in a very real way, and the world responds to that version of you. I once knew a business owner who constantly complained about his employees. He believed they were lazy and unmotivated. He repeated this story so often that it became his reality. I told him the issue wasn't his team. It was the state he was in when he thought about them. He saw them through frustration, and that's what he kept experiencing. So he tried something different. Every morning before work, he took time to sit quietly and imagine himself as a leader who truly appreciated his team. He felt gratitude for them as if it were already real. Within a few weeks, things began to change. Not because he forced his employees to act differently, but because he changed the way he saw them. And that shift affected how they showed up. The state you carry shapes everything. Once you understand that, you realize you have more control than you thought. Not by forcing outcomes, but by choosing who you are being in each moment. What really changed wasn't just the behavior of the people around him. It was the signal he was giving off, and they picked up on it. So did they change, or did his new state bring out different sides of the same people? In truth, it was both. The people in your life don't exist separately from your inner world. They are part of the same field your consciousness is interacting with. When your state shifts, you begin to notice different things, invite different responses, and create space for different qualities to show up in others. Holding on to a new state does take consistency. There's no shortcut around that. Every state carries momentum. It's like a path your mind has walked so many times that it feels automatic, like it's just who you are. So when you try to step into something new, it can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable at first. Think of your mind like a river that has been flowing in the same direction for years. If you wanted to go somewhere new, you have to create a new path for it. In the beginning, the water resists. It wants to return to what it knows. But if you keep guiding it, that new path deepens. Eventually, the water flows there naturally, without effort. That's how change happens. At first it feels forced, then it becomes easier, and eventually it just becomes your normal way of being. But there's one part of this process that matters more than anything else. You have to stay in your chosen state even when your outer world doesn't reflect it yet. That's the real test. If you choose to embody success, you hold that feeling even on days when nothing seems to be working. If you choose love, you stay rooted in it even when others seem distant or cold. This isn't about ignoring reality. It's about not letting what you see dictate who you are internally. You don't let the reflection define you. You decide who stands in front of the mirror. This is what true faith really is. Not blind belief, but the ability to live from a state before you can physically see proof of it. It's the discipline of feeling something as real now, even when it hasn't shown up yet. That's what is meant when it's said, believe you have already received it. Not someday, now, internally, before the outside catches up.